Hello, and welcome to the Bike Here podcast, where we are focused on helping you get on your bike a little bit more and leaving your car at home whenever possible. I'm your host, Arlie Greenwald, better known as Bike Shop Girl on the internet. And today, I am so excited. We are going to be talking with Josh Hahn, the team captain, my friend, Tern Bicycles, and our new Tern Quick Haul electric bike. I can say easily, I have not been this excited about a new bike in a long time because I really believe this is going to change what people think an everyday electric bike can do. So without further ado, let's get in to our conversation with Josh Hahn. Today, the new Tern Quick Haul was released. And if you didn't know already, I work for Tern and I am so excited about this bike. It's the middle of the night, my time, and I'm fortunate enough that Josh Hahn, our team captain, is joining us to talk about the Quick Haul. I will put below in the description all the notes and links so you can learn more in depth. But I thought it would be fun to just talk to Josh about where this bike came from, who we think it's for, because I get really excited about Tern products. I really believe in the brand and everything that we're creating, but this is the first bike I feel like I can recommend to almost every one of my friends without them saying, I want to carry X, Y, and Z, or I need to fit it in X, Y, and Z. It just feels like it fits everyone. So Josh, thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Arlie. Happy to be here.
So Josh, the Quick Haul, it's our everyday bike, simply capable e-bike. Where did this come from?
Well, I think it was really, so when we develop product, we're always thinking about who's the customer, what are they trying to do in their life, and what tools do they have available to them now, and are we able to come up with something that could make things a little bit better? And if if the realization is, hey, there's already a lot of good ways to do that, we don't need to do that. But if we look at the available products and we go, hey, you know what? I think we could actually do something a little bit better, a little bit different. That's when we get kind of excited, and we jump in. And so the Quick Haul really is looking at the everyday e-bike designed for city usage, and what does that bike typically look like? What typically has large wheels. It has a very traditional diamond style frame, and it has a motor battery, now integrated into the down tube for the premium, with a mid tube, with a mid motor or a hub motor, and it has a lot of times, in the US, your city e-bike has no fenders, no rack, no lights. Often, in Europe, it will have those things and a small rack. And that's the typical e-bike designed for city usage. And, so the Quick Haul is really our thinking on, hey, I think we could optimize an e-bike and make it even better for city usage by doing some things a little bit differently. And so small wheels gives you a lot more cargo space. It gives you a much lower center of gravity. So the bike is more stable. It allows you to actually stretch out the wheelbase. So the Quick Haul has a longer wheelbase than your average city bike. So it's more stable to ride. So on and on, a long list of things. But the Quick Haul really is us going, you know what? I think a city e-bike should look like a Quick Haul, and it should work like a Quick Haul. And we think that this is better than the average city bike that you can buy now.
The reason that I joined the Tern team was because we truly are trying to help people pick a bike over a car. That's, for me, my goal in life is just to help people choose to leave the car behind. That's my tagline. And I love, as a company, that's where our filter is. It's not that we're trying to create a bike for Sunday morning recreational rides. Yes, all of our bikes work wonderfully for recreational riding, but it has all the features that you and I think of for a city bike standard, and the product team did a great job of stripping away as much as possible, get that price down, but still making it functionally a Tern. It's still adjustable, one size fits most, quick and easy adjustment at that. You don't need tools to do it. And all of our accessories work on it, so it's not handcuffing you into, you have to pull a trailer if you want to have a kid with you. And before we hit record, I was telling Josh, I've spent a lot of time on the quick haul, and it's the first Tern bike that to me doesn't feel like a small cargo bike or a small, folding bike. It feels like a fun city bike. There was many times, and I don't know if it's the wheelbase or the handlebars, but just cruising around on it, like I wanted to push the bike harder because I was having so much fun. And then on the way home, I opened the speed lifter and pulled the handlebar up, and then I was able to cruise home and, sit upright and not push myself as hard. And, you can get that to a point with the Vectron, but it's shorter. So it's not as swoopy and fun. I love all of our bikes, obviously, but it was the one that I was like, this is my bike. This is the bike, especially, in the US, we're doing a class 3. But I was like, yep, this is the one for me, where everything else I was picking because I needed to bring my kids, or I needed it to fit in the back of the car, or I needed, it was solving some problem that only a Tern could. And this one, it's like everyone in my household can ride this and have fun. And I'm not investing $5,000 to $6,000 and hoping it doesn't get stolen.
Yeah. Well, I think we thought about the geometry, right, when we started, and right, the GSD, the HSD are cargo oriented bikes. They have a very, let's say, special geometry where you're very upright, and I think that's great for those bikes. We love it for those bikes. But going in with the quick haul, we just wanted something that felt more immediately comfortable and familiar. Mm-hmm. So coincidentally, the quick haul feels kind of like my commuting mountain bike back in the day, right? Mm-hmm. So the geometry is super similar to like it would be like a hybrid or a German trekking bike, so it's a little bit more aggressive. You say you just want to go push it and go fast. When I get on the quick haul, I tend to look for things to jump off of. So, you want to like jump off curbs and
I'll put a disclaimer in the description. Yeah,
that's right.
And when I think about it as a bike shop owner, so, a couple of the other things I wanted to talk about, Josh, is like, it's one size, so when I think of SKUs as a bike shop owner or somebody on a sales floor, you have one size bike. You don't have to worry about stocking all the sizes and all the colors. And then all of our existing accessories for the HSD, for the most part, fit this. And so you don't have to bring in a whole new line of accessories if you're a Tern dealer, or if you already have an HSD, and you want a complementary bike that doesn't carry as much, a lot of the stuff's going to carry over. But the thing I'm also really excited about, other than this is like our first e-bike for the masses, e-bikes for everyone, is the bikes for business piece. Where the price tag for the D8 here in the US is going to be right under $3,000. And that's for the Bosch UL system. So UL certified, it's safe. It's one of the only things that I'll charge in my garage. And then we still put it through the EFBE testing. So everything on that bike is tested to withstand 330 pounds, I believe. And that's something that businesses relying on these bikes have been asking for, but the HSD was just a little bit out of their budget.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, the HSD is an amazing bike. But we also realized that, hey, we're not here just to make premium bikes for kind of the upper tier customer. We are pushing to go down, and if our goal is to get more people out of their cars onto bikes, you have to make more affordable products as well. And so, the quick haul is really us looking at the HSD and going, okay, which, kind of fancy bells and whistles could we remove while keeping the core functionality that we think remains, which, compared to the average city bike, hey, is still a lot better. And so that ability to carry a passenger, we think is amazing. The ability to carry extra cargo, so that extra long rack, the rack, rated to carry 100 plus pounds, right? So all of these things are things that we think, okay, that's core to what a city bike should be. Let's keep those, like a belt drive. Okay, that's kind of a premium feature. So let's leave that out for now. But so, I think what we have left is, hey, a bike that starts at $29.99 US, and I believe euros as well. So it's our kind of lowest cost e-bike. It's not cheap by any means, but it's a really good bike with all of these core features that you'd want in a city.
Yeah, I love that we didn't sacrifice our beliefs in making this, because I think it actually would have been very easy for the product team to make a budget focused bike. But I love that I can say every Tern bike is designed to last. We're not wanting you to be upgrading every 2 to 3 years because your bike's wearing out. We want it to replace your car. And I believe that in the quick haul, even though I was doing quick math where, as gas increases here, a lot of folks will be able to replace just from gas prices, with this bike within a year, you're paying for it just where the gas price is here in the US.
Yeah, the running costs of a car just for a year, right? Between, not even including the payments, just gas, insurance, parking, maintenance, just those things are incredibly high, right? So don't even talk about your payments for the car.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I always love to hear your hopes and dreams for a bike, just who do you imagine, and we often talk about dealers of like, oh, we can't wait until they tell us about customer stories. But do you have in your mind, like in 6 months or a year, like what will success for the quick haul look like to you?
I think, it's always hearing about how people use the product and how it's maybe changed how they live their lives. Right. I think that's if somebody says, hey, I got one of these quick hauls and I took it out this Saturday to ride along the beach. That's cool, but it's not life-changing. And so, the types of stories that really affect us would be things like, hey, I used to drive my kid to school, and there's always a traffic jam in front of the school, and I'd be sitting there in a line of cars, everybody with their engines on for 10 or 15 minutes trying to get into the drop-off line. And now I do it by quick haul. and I just zoom right up to the front and I'm out of there. And and then on the way back, I can do whatever. And I've got in 30 minutes of cardio as well. Like those kinds of stories for us are so much more moving. So hearing stories like that, and hearing them from lots of people, that to me would be success, or even, hey, I'm so, I've been looking at Terns for a while. It just is a little bit expensive for me. I didn't need such and such features, so I got the quick call, and I'm so happy that you're bringing that price point down. That would also be, really moving for us. And then you talked about bikes for business. So like the commercial side, we know a lot of companies now are looking at electric cargo bikes for last mile logistics, right? So instead of having a UPS truck double parked on your street and blocking traffic and spewing out diesel fumes, you could have, an electric bike just riding right up, dropping things off quickly and quietly. And that's something that we're doing, right? For example, we're already doing that in New York, in Manhattan. We're working with a logistics provider for Whole Foods, and it's going great. And we know there are many, many companies that are looking at this. And when they look at the data, which is, how many stops and drop-offs can I do per hour? How happy are our drivers? How happy is the community that we're in, when we have these green vehicles? So when you look at all of this data, it all comes out very positive for e-cargo bikes. And so that's why, as a business, you're like, okay, that's if the data shows that I'm going to make more money and have more positive engagement in my community, that's where I'm going to go. So there are a lot of companies going in this direction. And we think the Quick Haul, with its cargo capacity, is perfect for small deliveries.
Yeah, the company you were mentioning, I'll put a link to the case study that we have on them. They are using HSDs, but it's the same motor and drivetrain as the Quick Haul. So I'm really excited to see in the next year and a half how this changes what people think an e-bike can do, because it's not a cargo bike, but it's still very capable when you compare it to normal everyday e-bikes.
Yeah. Well, I think, you also mentioned a good point, which is that, we didn't sacrifice our principles of, quality and good design. And I think, sometimes, we have a lot of bike industry experience in our company. And, sometimes when we start projects, people are like, okay, well, so what's our target retail price for this bike? And that's how a lot of companies work. It's like, I need a bike at $599, $799, $999, $1499, and you choose your components, which is essentially the quality of the bike, based on that target retail price. And we also start with these ideas. Hey, let's have the Quick Haul at $26.99. But then, as the project proceeds, we use that as a guideline. But the biggest guide, for us is really, what would we be happy with riding ourselves, right? And so the Quick Haul, early on, it was like, hey, what kind of motor are we going to use? Is it going to be a Bosch Active motor, Bosch Active Plus, performance? And hey, if we want to hit this target, we should use a Bosch Active motor. But then in the end, the team, you're riding the bike, you're doing the test, you're like, we really prefer the Active Plus motor. It just gives a little bit more oomph, especially if you're carrying, a kid in the back, or, 20 or 30 kilos of stuff. So sometimes, you hear, hey, you guys had a target of $26.99, and it's like, yeah, but we weren't happy with, with how that motor was working on this bike. So we decided to go up. So oftentimes that happens with us, but for us, it's a lot more important that we have a bike that we're happy with. Maybe sometimes it's a tiny bit more expensive than what we originally planned for, but it's a bike that we say, hey, on this bike, we didn't compromise anything. It's something that we would ride ourselves. We would recommend to our friends. And so I think that's something that's different in how we design our bikes. Sometimes they end up, creeping a little higher than expected.
But I will say that we listen really well to our consumers and our dealers. Here in the US, the HSD P9 Performance is a great example where, we came to market with 3 HSDs and we listened, and as quickly as possible, Tern added another model for our really hilly areas. And what I appreciate in that is you can always in the future add or change, but starting with something that you believe in, that it reflects across the whole line too, which is really important, so that if somebody has a bad experience on one of our models, they might not try one of the other ones, and that's really important just as you grow a brand, but just knowing that any Tern bike, I completely trust putting anyone on. And I think just as we grow, we'll make more options for more people to fit in those niches. But you have to start with the biggest niches and not the smallest.
Yeah. But I think, testing, right? Testing is something that is so essential to electric bikes and bikes that are used to carry stuff and precious passengers. And the reality is that, especially in the US, there aren't a whole lot of required standards. I think people might not realize this, but it's not like the car industry where there's rigorous tests that every car sold in the US market has to pass this test, and it has to pass it from a certified third-party laboratory, right? Cars are like that. A lot of stuff is like that, right? So whether that's medicine, right? Lots of things, but bicycles are not like that. So bicycles typically are, the importer goes, oh yeah, we self-certify that these meet these standards. But the reality is that, a lot of the testing could be done by the factory that's exporting the product. Of course, you have some self-serving bias there. So I think, that's something where I think Europe is pretty far ahead. And the standards in Europe are just getting tougher. So I think we love the fact that we're working with, these top third-party labs. We work with EFBE. Sometimes a test doesn't exist, and we have to go and create it ourselves. So, for instance, we've discovered that, hey, guess what? There are no good standard tests for kickstands. You see kickstands rated to a certain number, but there's no standard way to test it. So we went and created a standard test. So, I think, also, I see a lot of large numbers for weight capacity thrown out by certain brands. And then you look at the product and you go, well, yeah, there's no way that would pass anywhere near what they're claiming on any sort of a standardized test.
Mm-hmm.
And then
we talk about
batteries. Yeah.
Before we jump to batteries and UL testing, we're talking everything from brakes to forks to wheels, everything on that bike has to be to that weight limit and that stress test. And I think it's one thing to say that your frame can meet a certain standard, but then we're talking about the rest of it, the pedals, I especially some of the ones that have brakes that can't be upgraded after the fact, so you're you're just struggling. So I think realizing all those things, and I will say, having owned an electric bike shop, like I completely understand that some people have to start somewhere, but they just need to know the limits of those bikes, and recognize that maybe we are their second bike, but we feel strongly that we need to be pushing that ceiling in those testing standards, because we all want to feel comfortable that you're putting your kids on our bikes. And and that to me, like, I want to know that I can sleep tonight and not worry that something that we did is ever going to cause harm because we didn't test, the forks properly. So I think it's looking at that whole picture and recognizing people are where they're at. And we're always going to be a welcoming group of people, regardless of what you're riding. But we, as a brand and as an organization, just want to ensure that we are pushing that, just like a good segue is Bosch with the UL testing.
Yeah, absolutely. If I did my math correctly, the amount of energy inside a 400 watt hour battery is like 5 to 6 hand grenades. So it's a lot of power in that. And so it's really, really important that everything in that battery pack and the charger is done well. It's been stress tested, all of those things. I mean, right, we know that hoverboards got banned, right? Hoverboards got banned, on airlines, all of these places, because in that chase for lower and lower and lower pricing, right? This was many Christmases ago. Everybody was cutting corners, and without any standards, and you can just cut corners as much as you want. What happened was that fires were breaking out everywhere. And so I think, obviously e-bikes have much larger batteries. So if a fire starts, it's a much more serious thing. Even when people are careful, right? I mean, was it the Chevy Bolt, right? Huge recall because of the same issues with batteries. Batteries are no joke, and they're not easy. And if there's a lack of testing and people are pushing for lower and lower prices, well, it's kind of predictable what happens. I mean, I think there are there were like 70 fires started by e-bikes in New York City just last year. That's a lot. And that's scary.
Yeah. And what's hard is somebody might say, our batteries UL tested, but it's not the charger. It's not the rest of the system, or it might be just the controller that's UL tested. Yeah. And so looking for that UL tested and certified throughout the whole system. And a few weeks ago, I was actually on it was during one of those news segments that came out about the battery fires. And I went through our house and looked at all the major electronics, and they all have UL testing, that logo. And it was just one of those, people don't know what they don't know, and I don't want to shame anyone, because again, bikes are expensive. But the other thing that's not happening is education, from the side of if you drop your battery or, your bike has a hard impact, it needs to be inspected by somebody that knows what they're doing. And, how to charge it, make sure you don't overcharge that type of battery that's not tested with a smart charger, on and on and on. And so my fear is that e-bikes will get a bad rap because of, the cheaper brands or the rebuilt batteries or whatever. And that to me is why I know Bosch is more expensive, but it's one of those, to your point, do you want 5 hand grenades charging in your garage or in your kitchen that haven't been tested? Probably not.
Yeah. Well, I think, that's where standards come, right? And that's where government, needs to step in and say, hey, for the greater good, we're going to establish this standard as the thing that everybody needs to pass for the product to be safe, right? Imagine if there were no standards for medicine. That wouldn't that wouldn't be very good. And everybody could just advertise whatever they wanted as, hey, this works for this works for that. That's not good. And that's where...
Josh, have you been on Instagram lately? That's all. Don't buy drugs off the internet. That's the moral of the story, or bikes. So
I don't take my medical advice from Instagram.
Yes. So to summarize that, like the quick haul still is meeting our safety standards, and I think that's really important. I look forward to seeing where this bike takes us. It takes so many people. I really think, the Vectron, the GSD, and the HFD obviously have been very successful bikes, but they're niche bikes, and this is not a niche bike. So I'm really excited to see, a year to two from now when it's really even picked up, what people are doing, and hopefully how many people are replacing car trips, maybe replacing their car.
Well, here's my prediction. My prediction is 5 to 10 years out, the average city e-bike will look more like a quick haul than these large wheel diamond frame bikes that you see on the roads today. So that's the prediction, right? And so, imagine the first guy who, what is it, Vespa, the first person who designed a scooter, and everything else on the roads was motorcycles. And the scooter guy goes, hey, this seems like it should work better in the city. We use smaller wheels, and so you can sit differently and more comfortably, and the center of gravity is lower, so it's a lot easier to balance and ride. And hey, guess what? You can put another passenger on the back. And now in urban centers, right, especially in Asia, but Europe as well, are there more scooters or more motorcycles on the road? And so my prediction is, the quick haul is that bike that, people will gradually over time go, hey, gee, that design kind of makes sense if you're going to design a city e-bike. Maybe it should have a longer rack that can carry a passenger. Does it really need to have large wheels? So we'll see. We have a couple of years to see.
All right. We'll be back in 5 years to see if Josh's predictions. Yeah, and I'll share some photos of the team when they commute in to Taipei, the scooters. There's so many of them. It's like rush hour in LA, but with scooters. Yeah.
Well, fortunately, Taipei actually has pretty good bike paths along the rivers. And so a lot of us, right, you're trying to get to the riverside as fast as possible. And then you go along the riverside where there are no cars or scooters or motorcycles.
Oh, so nice. Awesome. Well, Josh, I know you have a lot to do this week, but everyone watching, I'll put notes below so you can go look at the quick haul. And we're fingers crossed, hoping late summer delivery here in the US. And check out all our videos and photos because it's such a fun bike. And Josh, thank you for joining us.
Yes. Yep. Thanks, Harley.